Hey guys, it's Mandy Ray of Ecstatic Astrology, and I'm here in my backyard to give you a little astrology update. Right now we have the moon in Sagittarius, and it is at 8 degrees when I'm recording this. What does that mean? Well, we're past the full moon, and right after the full moon in Libra, the moon went into Scorpio. Scorpio is not a very comfortable place for the moon. The moon is emotions, and movement of those emotions doesn't happen in Scorpio. Scorpio is a fixed water sign. It's like the swamp of our emotions. So we had to dive pretty deep, pretty fast. And as soon as the moon went into Scorpio, it did something called squaring, which is tension Pluto. And Pluto is transformation and empowerment, sometimes disempowerment. So it was a little bit of a rite of passage yesterday, and at the same time, actually, I should say day before yesterday because it went in pretty quick. And today is Wednesday, April 16th. So Monday, Tuesday, let's put it that way, because the moon was in Scorpio for a while. There's a reason for that. The moon was conjoining Black Moon Lilith, which is just a point in space. It is not a planet, it's not a dwarf planet, it's not an asteroid, it's not a luminary, and it's not a star. It is a point in space, and that is where the moon during its elliptical orbit moves slowest. And that point changes as most everything does in astrology. There's an inchworm on my keyboard right now. I'm having to really notice the little things to be grateful lately because it's been pretty difficult. I mean, personally, maybe there's some of you out there who are having the best time ever, and I think that's wonderful. It really is a personal thing based on all of our astrology charts, so knowing your rising sign is really important. So after the moon moved past the square to Pluto, moving very slowly, it stayed in Scorpio for quite a while. And then it moved to the last degree of Scorpio yesterday evening, the 15th of April, 2025, in case anyone stumbles on this sometime in the future. Um, the 29th degree of any sign is known as the anaretic degree. It's because it's the last degree. It's last chance for that sign for whatever planet's transiting it. It holds all of the lessons and all of the good things from the rest of that sign. And if we make changes or um, have have to make any movement, that is a degree in which it happens a lot of the times. That's why it's crisis. Crisis isn't always bad. There's a song by a band called Plants and Animals, and the line goes, "Somewhere between a crisis and a pretty good time." And I think that's a really good way to look at it. So the moon moved to the 29th degree of Scorpio, and Scorpio being our deep emotions that we stuff all the way down, uh, has us looking at that. And Pluto in modern astrology rules Scorpio. They're pretty similar in archetype, let me put it that way. They both deal with transformation. Scorpio rules the occult, the things that are hidden. That's why I say it's the emotion because it's water, but the emotion that just kind of festers there. So with the moon transiting that once a month anyway, we always have to deal with that. Forgive my crazy garden hair. I'm about to snip some things, right? But the traditional ruler of Scorpio is Mars. And Mars is the warrior. Mars is action, motivation, frustration. Sometimes anger, that's Mars. Inflammation. Mars is at the 29th degree of Cancer. Again, the anaretic degree of crisis. And I don't say that to fearmonger. The degree of crisis is just what it is. It's a moment where we have to take a look and say, do we need to do something about this? Whether for good or bad, this is really bothering me. That being said, there was something else at the 29th degree, and that was, oh, look, my tag for my new earbuds is on my hair. That was Mercury at the 29th degree of Pisces, another water sign. So it's making a triangle in the sky. You have the moon at 29, Mercury at 29, Mars at 29, of all three water signs. So water, emotion, care, nurturing. Water is the life giver, right? I have a friend named Lee who says he thinks God is water. And so, I mean, that's where a lot of energy kind of clicked in yesterday. And I hate to say the word energy, but how else do you talk about vibes, right? I personally had a kind of a breakdown with some people in my life, in my body. I'm a Cancer rising. Mars was at the 29th degree of Cancer, still is today, Wednesday, April 16th. So that was rough. So I wanted to go ahead and give an update on, let's just say, all water risings probably felt this: Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces in some way. Um, but every sign is really being triggered by some planet right now, okay, or something. Um, Today, the moon is in Sagittarius. It's a much lighter vibe, almost reflective, philosophical. Sagittarius is the sign of knowledge and adventure and searching and learning and teaching and traveling. That's Sagittarius. And again, when I talk about the moon, it moves pretty quick compared to everything else in astrology. So it'll be in Sagittarius for, let me see here, it moves into Capricorn. It looks like Friday the 18th. But in the meantime, today, the moon in Sagittarius is kind of lightening things up. Um, Mercury is now in Aries. That is a big shift. It was, again, at the last degree of Pisces last night. Well, today we have Mercury in Aries. Another reason it's a big shift is because of the fact that it hits Neptune. And I'm trying to figure out how to say this because it's a big subject, and I'm not trying to spend too much of your time here. Just update you on the next couple of weeks. Um, Neptune is very collective in nature, and I don't know if you notice, it seems like a lot of people have been dealing with something, and it may not be emotional for you, it may be financial. Venus is butting heads with Saturn in Pisces right now, and Venus is love and money and values, beauty, and Saturn is restriction. But there's just something I think that even if it's not in your personal life, maybe you're looking at the outer world and the government and having a little bit of a crisis. Mercury hitting Neptune is almost an invitation for everyone to think of this topic, which is spirituality. That's Neptune. It is the ether. It is things we don't understand. It's the collective. So Mercury hitting Neptune today didn't necessarily clear things up. A lot of people put Neptune with Pisces in modern astrology. But I think tomorrow, the 17th, as Mercury moves past Neptune, things do start to clear up, at least mentally. Mercury is how we communicate, how we talk. Aries is action. When it's in Pisces, it's like floating. It's like our minds are like, where do I go? What do I do? But it is inspiration. But as it moves into Aries, granted, once it gets past Neptune, it is also action, quick thinking, maybe sometimes harsh words, okay, because that can happen with Mercury and Aries, but a welcome movement nonetheless. The other thing is today, Mars is still at the anaretic degree of Cancer. Tomorrow, the 17th, Mars is still at the anaretic degree of Cancer, but on Friday, the 18th, Mars moves into Leo. Now, one caveat to this is at least it's not in Cancer where things are really emotionally triggering. And it's hard for the warrior to act when he's sad. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes sadness draws the warrior to anger, and I'm speaking of Mars, but Leo is much more of a, I'm just gonna say, fun vibe. Mars is a fire planet entering a fire sign on Friday the 18th, and that's good. But the caveat is that it'll still be in the shadow of its retrograde. So Mars went retrograde December 6th at 6 degrees of Leo, and I may be not exactly right, but I hope I am. I'm not looking at my stuff right now. So I think Friday the 18th, at least we have a little more gumption. And we may, because Mars will trine Neptune in Aries, Neptune being inspiration and collective idealism or collective ideals in general. Um, I'm going to look at Friday because, Neptune was last at this degree of Aries during the Civil War. And I'm looking at it. It could, a trine is supportive, a trine is flowing. Normally you want to see a trine, but Mars is what's called a malefic planet. And do I think bad things happen when Mars trines Neptune? Supportive energy? No, but I do think collective anger may come up. I hope bad things don't happen. I'm definitely not sewing that into reality, but I do think there is a potential for people acting on maybe their delusions. So while you can use this transit for inspiration, especially creatively, spiritually. Mars in Leo is a creative movement, okay? And it's joy and it's the heart chakra. If we can remember that and kind of sit in that and use the collective nature of Neptune at 0 degrees Aries. And, a lot of astrologers may kind of think I'm ridiculous for saying the 0 degree of Aries is collective in nature because Aries is individual um, experience. Aries is about identity and going at it alone, but that's not Neptune. So when you mix the two, I mean, it can be a little bit of a dissolution of that if you look at that and say, man, yes, we're all individuals, but we are not alone. We are a collective community, you know? So that's Friday the 18th. Um, and I would definitely, use it to maybe connect with people, connect with your inspiration and your joy if you want to maybe avoid the more negative connotations of Mars trining Neptune. And be aware of sinking into any delusional kind of activity. The moon's in Capricorn that day, that should help. The 19th, the sun moves into Taurus. What is Taurus? It is what is behind me. Taurus is the earth, it's fixed earth, it's grounded, it's ruled by Venus, which is really positive. So I do love that. But again, there's more caveats because there always is, especially right now. And that is Pluto. Pluto is at the 3rd degree of Aquarius right now. Mars will square Pluto, and the sun will also square it. Mars will oppose Pluto and the sun will also square it. Sorry, I'm looking at my calendar right now. The sun squares Pluto the 23rd. Mars opposes Pluto the 26th. Okay, so this is a whole different thing that we have to talk about. So that's why I said if you read my Instagram post that things may not ease up, but they will be different. This is what I'm talking about. Mars in Leo is very active on inner child needs, on my joy, right? Opposing Pluto. Pluto is empowerment of the collective. So it's kind of this singular energy versus and transformation of the collective. So it can itself be a powder keg as well. Mars in Leo is going to immediately do that, even though it doesn't exactly oppose Pluto until the 26th. By the time Mars moves into Leo on the 18th, it's already opposing it very closely. So we have this building from the 18th through the 26th. In fact, the 26th is the moment we're released from the Mars opposition to Pluto, where we may have to work with how we're being oppressed versus how we fight back for our own joy, our own inner child, our own creativity, what we want to do. And all the while, the sun in Taurus is what's called at a T square with it. So Pluto's here, Mars is here, the sun's up here in Taurus, you have a T square. Squares are tension. The sun is the life force of the universe, right? So, of course, that has to pull on us. Taurus is stable. What do we want during this time? Stability. Taurus is comfort. Taurus is financial abundance. Taurus is nature and the beauty of it. And the sun overhead will be in Taurus. And it's extremely fertile. But there is this sense that something has to change. That's what a T square does. All squares and all tension moves things. So it's going to be maybe a little uncomfortable where we're having to empower ourselves despite feeling like No one else gets it. I think that's Pluto in the early degrees of Aquarius. Aquarius is often like, compared to utopia, it's the bird's eye view. It is collective as a sign, and Pluto is going to transform that, right? So, what happens? How do you empower yourself? Well, first you have to admit that you're disempowered. And that's what we're going through right now, okay? And this is very much like I'm going to be a creative rebel, Leo, in order to get through this. And don't forget to acknowledge the Scorpio part of yourself. That is your deep emotion, because nothing will be in Scorpio. And a lot of times when you have a T square, it wants to make a cross. Where does all that energy get pushed? Down here. And I say down because truly, if you look at the sun at noon when it's in Taurus, it'll be at the top of the sky. Scorpio is going to be under our feet. So I think diving deep down and figuring out what issues make us feel disempowered, and um, getting real about who our ride or die person is going to also come up during this time. When will it get better, Mandy? Um, the 24th has potential. Venus conjoins Saturn. That's another part of this. Venus, love, beauty, and money. I already talked about that a little bit. And that's just really glossing over the depth of what Venus is. It's relationship, it's other people, it's peace, it's balance. We'll finally meet up with Saturn, strict structure, restriction, responsibility, foundation, though, mastery. And it's almost like a commitment's made on the 24th, okay? And then Venus moves past Saturn, and that's going to feel so nice. So we got the 23rd, Sun square Pluto. Keep in mind, Mars is in Leo, just waiting to oppose Pluto. Venus on the 24th passes Saturn on the 26th. Mars opposes Pluto. And then what do we have? We have a new moon on the 27th in Taurus. And I think that new moon will mark a moment of marked change, marked reinvigoration of our values and what we stand for, what we want out of life. So, 27th, maybe. Things are rough no matter what you do. There's lots of things in the sky that are making people unsure. I do look forward to June. I think Jupiter and Cancer will be nice, but I think, really it's step by step. And I think the message of everything, especially the fact that on the 30th of April, Venus moves back into Aries, the message here with Mercury in Aries is, I mean, it's really not time to plan. The South Node is in Virgo. You're not supposed to be planning. Now it's time to act. It's going to be time to act. Especially, when Mars opposes Pluto, it's like, what am I acting on for my own survival? And I don't mean that in a scary way. I mean, especially in Leo, it's more like, what do I want out of life? And I'm going to act out of love, and I'm going to act for creativity, for joy. Um, but with a few things in Aries, with Neptune in Aries, I think it's just time to act if you're doing it out of love and if you're doing it out of um, good purpose, and especially for yourself. But you are a part of the collective. Taking care of you helps the collective. Uh, Water risings, yes. Once we get into the middle of next week on the 23rd, and maybe even Friday the 18th, starting fixed signs Taurus, Scorpio, Aquarius, and Leo, especially risings, will all have this Mars, Pluto, Sun stuff on their angles. So that's very important. Angles are very much who you are as a person in astrology, your rising sign, your MC, that's the top of the sky, your descendant, and then your IC, the bottom of the sky. So fixed risings, fixed suns, fixed moons, all may be under the gun a little bit, and I don't mean that like a real one. Knock on wood for all the fixies. I'm a Scorpio sun. Um, I said water signs, you know, that's going to switch really quickly for water signs, so I think that's pretty good. And then maybe mutable signs leading into the Venus conjunction to Saturn on the 24th. That's Pisces, Gemini, Virgo, and Sagittarius. Yeah, mutables, fixies, cardinals are going to get it too with the Aries stuff. Um, so yeah, there's no need for me to do rising sign videos now because everyone's going to deal with it. Everyone's going to deal with all of this somewhere. Uh, may everything go well for you. Get out in nature. The sun will be in Taurus starting on the 19th. Um, I think nature is the answer to everything right now. I think simplifying what we can be grateful for, um, and acting, as my friend Julie said, she runs a yoga studio, body movement place here where I live called Fit City. She said, I think people are feeling it in their bodies as well. Let your body lead, um, and imagine, create, do art, love people, get your hands dirty, make your home comfy. That's probably the best way to do things right now. And let yourself be inspired. All right, Mandy Ray of Ecstatic Astrology, uh, holler at me. I actually probably will be back for the new moon in Taurus. This energy gets a little better, and maybe I won't be so in crisis mode. It's been coming from every which way, y'all. EcstaticAstrology.com. See you soon.